Welcome again to the Pitchside Podcast. I'm your host, the HOD of the BSP. Like, share, comment on this video, subscribe to the channel, of course, enable notifications to receive all the updates of this podcast and the future videos. Of course, disclaimer, this is going to be the penultimate sort of episode. Actually, the pre-penultimate episode. I still have 2 episodes to do, of course, before I take a short break for the next week or so until the new year kicks on and the fall leagues return, of course, with the Italian, Spanish, and German, and also there's going to be NFA Cup and Carabao Cup fixtures. There's going to be a lot of things to cover, really. In this week, I'm going to take a little bit of a break, starting from Monday. The last episode is going to be on Monday. Follow us on social media, of course, SidePSP on Twitter, PitchSide on Instagram, listen to the podcast on Spotify or wherever you can get it from. It's available also on www.webreathesports.com if you want to check it out there. Of course, I write there, so you can check more articles, more football content there if you want, and you feel free to check that out. This is going to be another short episode, I think, to break the rhythm. As you can see, I think, from the title and the thumbnail, we're talking about 2020 football retrospective. Football was weird in 2020. I mean, 2020 as a whole was a wholly weird year. But I think football is doubly weird because it suffered a lot. I mean, sports in general suffered a lot from 2020 and the pandemic. Because mostly, sports is mostly about the interactions with fans, really. And football without fans isn't the same. Like, in any situation, football without fans isn't the same. 2020 had its highlights, of course, had its lowlights, it had its moments, football stopping for 30 months or something in the middle. Champions Leagues being played as one-legged fixtures, leagues being congested basically into almost some sort of tournaments, pretty much, to finish the season altogether. Of course, the passing of football legends, Diego Armando Maradona, Papa Diop, and Gordon Banks, and more. Rest in peace to all the footballers who passed away during this year of 2020. Of course, there was the big highlights of this year. There was big events that happened. There was, for some fans, of course, happy events. Liverpool winning the Premier League in a year which the world looked like it's going to be ending. I mean, it was trolled, it was joke on social media that when Liverpool win the league, it's going to be a catastrophe. It almost was, to be fair, but I mean, in all seriousness, they deserved that moment. They deserved it after 30 years of waiting to win a Premier League title, and it came in the most beautiful way, to be fair, for them, running away basically with the title. Unfortunately, they celebrated the trophy in front of an empty stadium. In 2020 as well, it was the year of Bayern, the domination of Bayern Munich, winning all the titles that they could, hacking the Champions League basically, winning all the games and going on a brilliant run, including that 8-2 result against Barcelona that I'm not going to be forgetting anytime soon, nor anyone probably. Barcelona fans probably won't even forget it anytime soon, really. Speaking of Barcelona, back to the lowlights, really. It was sort of a fall of a grace for Barcelona. 2020 has been the worst year in a while for them. They have been declining. I mentioned that probably in the 5 worst teams of 2020, and the decline is continuing since 2017, probably 16, and the decline has continued until now, and it just made even more impact when they lost 8-2 to Bayern in the Champions League. This year, I mean, I'm thinking off the top of my head, really. I'm making this as spontaneous as possible. I'm not trying to make points or anything. Moving on, Milan's resurgence in Serie A, it was incredible to watch throughout the year, really. Definitely something that, would give us hope that this side is going to be back to the top very, very, very soon. If they win the Serie A this season, it's going to be an incredible transformation from a side, at least in the last couple of years. I'm not talking AC Milan in general, because the history of that club speaks for itself. But I'm talking the last couple of years, basically the last 8 years, where they missed the plot completely, been out of Europe for a while, very, very far from Serie A contention. They finished the season at 13th back in the day, in 2015 and 16. They finished the season at 13th, which was horrible just to imagine as a visual on the table, like looking at the table of Serie A and seeing Milan at 13th. But they did. But in 2020, I think the resurgence, of course, was led by Zlatan Ibrahimovic. Like, absolutely, we should not forget this. It was led by Zlatan Ibrahimovic in his 39 years of age. He's leading AC Milan like no one would do. Nobody would come to that Milan side and would do it better, really. Zlatan Ibrahimovic injected that kind of character that AC Milan needed. To be fair, I mean, AC Milan were doing fine before Zlatan came around. Like, they had a strong squad and all, but I think the turnaround that everybody agrees upon is that loss to Atalanta in late 2019, 5-0. That loss, I think, flipped the switch in the Milan board, and they realized, okay, we need to bring some experience, we need to bring some character into the club. And on was Zlatan Ibrahimovic, who came back, and I think the rest from there until now is history. 30 matches unbeaten run in Serie A. They are top of the table, 34 points. They're leading the race pretty strong at the moment for the Serie A title. It looks like it might be their year. At the worst of cases now, they will be back in the Champions League. That is the worst case scenario for AC Milan at the moment. They can't drop to a level that will get them below those Champions League places. I don't think so. The worst they could do is to get a top 4 finish. Now, if Juventus resurge themselves and win the Serie A, or Inter sneak from behind and win it, or any other club, actually, I mean, it's still pretty much close. Like, it depends on the results. All it needs is one bad result for AC Milan, practically one loss, and all the other clubs will be bouncing on them. Napoli, Roma, Inter, Juventus are going to be bouncing on them as well. So I think that is one of the most interesting highlights of 2020, was a resurgence of AC Milan for sure. Back to Liverpool winning the Premier League, really, and I want to focus on that a little bit. It was interesting. It was interesting in the way that it was done. I mean, Manchester City won it the season before by racing Liverpool all the way to the finish line and finishing by only 1 point of difference up the table. Liverpool won the Premier League in 2020 by quite the big margin, 23 points of Manchester City. It felt so comfortable, to the point of almost surreal that Liverpool are winning the title in that way. Like, Liverpool fans, I'm sure they expected it to be more dramatic. I'm sure they expected it to be a little bit more competitive. Not competitive, but, tense and nervous for them, but they didn't get what they want. Instead, they got a very comfortable title to win. In the end, it almost felt like Liverpool didn't want to play the last couple of games, really. They lashed out in the last couple of games, knowing that they had the title in the bag and they don't need to worry about anything. But that, of course, affected them in the Champions League of some sorts. And their exit against Atletico Madrid is going to be something that they're going to be mourning, really, for a while. That match as well, side note, was one of the reasons that, that COVID-19 did what it did in Europe, and it was one of the super spreader matches alongside Atalanta and Valencia in the Champions League, which puts us and transitions us swiftly to the post-pandemic world, or the post-pandemic football in more specific terms. Football was played in a bubble, and the protocols were trying to be applied as much as possible to guarantee that players will play safe, will play safe football from here on in, and continue the seasons in a congested form. Really, it was hard. Like, it felt really hard. And here I'm going to be talking about the Bundesliga, because they were the first league to return from the pandemic. I mean, as much as the Bundesliga was underrated and overlooked in some ways in terms of competitiveness, it was eagerly anticipated in early May, I think, when they announced, I think it was in late April, they announced that they will be returning in early May. It was eagerly anticipated that the Bundesliga is going to be returning. Everybody was waiting for Dortmund versus Schalke. It was the first game back for the Bundesliga. Everybody was returning. Everybody was eagerly anticipating for that game. Yes, no fans, and it felt like it felt weird. Like there were some games without fans that were played before, but Dortmund Schalke in a post-pandemic world felt really different with crowd sounds, injected in, and no actual supporters in the stadium. You could hear the players shouting. It felt haunting. It felt hollow in a big way. And then of course, as the season progressed, of course, and as the situation got a little bit better throughout the summer, the league started returning. Then was, of course, the Premier League and La Liga. Serie A followed suit after finishing the Coppa Italia. And then came the Champions League, played in a weird format of Blitz tournament. I mean, weird because it's never been done before, but not exciting. But you cannot say that it wasn't exciting. It was exciting. Like the nature of it didn't just give us the surprises that we got in the fact that we had Lyon in the semi-final and Leipzig in the semi-final. We had an almost Atalanta being in the semi-final. It wasn't just about that. It was about the fact that this format itself made everybody seem the same, right? Everybody feel the same. The games are played on one leg, no advantage of home and away, played on neutral stadium, and there was no chance that a team is going to be qualifying and advancing through would get through that with advantage of home and away goals, or trying to luck it out, or trying to use the less effort they can. They couldn't. The Blitz tournament nature forced the clubs to play at the 100%, and they played at the best level possible, and it was an entertaining Champions League. I think it was one of the most entertaining Champions League editions ever. And there were even the talks that this format of Blitz tournament in the knockouts will be replicated. But of course, you cannot do that every year. You have to bring back some sense of normalcy at one point. Of course, the Champions League was won by Bayern, and again, this was the year of Bayern. I mean, this was the year where Bayern Munich, I think, culminated the effort of the last couple of seasons, really. The transitional event, or sort of a climax of their season, was winning the Champions League, because that cemented them, I think, as the best team in the world at the moment, because they were hacking the league, they were winning the league, they were heading into the Champions League on a rest, really, after winning the double in Germany, heading into the Champions League on a rest as the leagues were progressing and just about finished in the other countries. Like La Liga finished in mid to late July, Serie A as well. So there was that sense that the Champions League is going to be, an incredible sort of slug for Bayern to get through. But in the end, they won it, and by quite the. I mean, I think the only tough match for real that Bayern had was the final against PSG, and it was down probably to PSG, missing a lot of chances, and Bayern capitalising. Again, I'm thinking off the top of my head, I'm really trying to make this as spontaneous as possible. I'm not trying to prepare notes or anything like that, so I'm remembering that the highlights or the lowlights. Another low light I think should be talking about Schalke. Schalke and Old Fair had, a rough year. I want to talk about them a lot. I mentioned them also in their 5 worst teams, but I think it's not about their performances on the pitch necessarily. I mean, the whole mood in the club with the financial problems, the contracts furlough and the furloughs for the staff and players really had its effect on the club, and no club, I think, was affected more than Schalke in this year. I mean, it feels miserable when watching them at the moment, knowing that they are bottom of the table, 4 or 5 points, I think, in the Bundesliga, bottom of the table, looking only down. Like, the only way they could look down now is down. I mean, the second division of the Bundesliga is waiting for them unless they do a miraculous comeback in the second half of the season, which I'm doubtful they could do, because fans won't be back until at least, potentially March, even April for next year. You don't see this financial issue being solved anytime soon, because even after the return of fans, there will be some investment needed. Probably a takeover is going to happen at a certain point in Schalke's future, but I think it's going to be hard for them to cope with the problems that they're going to have for the next couple of months. Again, I don't want like, football has been a mixed bag this year, and the good and the bad in 2020 has been, tremendously relative. Like, especially the good. Like, the good in football was relative compared to the darkness and the gloominess of the pandemic and 2020 as a whole year. So I think those are my highlights and lowlights really for the year. I don't know what I want to say. I mean, there's nothing big. There was no Euros, of course, so we can talk about them. There was no Olympics, so we can talk about them. Football, I think, as long as it was playing, like as long as there was matches and competition taking place, it is absolutely fine. But that pause in the middle of the year was just so disappointing to football fans, really. And so disappointing in a lot of ways. Like football could have been played then and there. Like, the season could have been continued, but at that point in time in March 2020, nobody knew how the virus was, how the pandemic was exactly being shaped. So nobody realised how to do protocols to continue playing football and continue playing proper football till the end of the year. Fortunately, now we have protocols. Fortunately, we can have football now, and it's a breath of fresh air when you look at football now, and you see fans returning in some places, in some countries. In England, depending on the tier of the city, in some cities there is fans, and some cities don't, but it's fine. Patience is key. Patience pays off, and there will be fans on all the stadiums, of course, in the UK and hopefully in Europe very, very soon. So that's it. I didn't want to waste a lot of time talking about it. I just wanted to throw some ideas out there and leave you to fill in the blanks. Really, I'm sure I forget a lot of things. I'm sure I forgot a lot of things here. But I'm just trying to give my perspective of how football was weird in 2020. Didn't feel properly exciting in terms of the fans' reaction, but certainly on the field, it was as exciting as ever. Again, in the end, remembering the legends that passed away, really. Rest in peace, Diego Maradona. Rest in peace, Bob Diop, Gordon Banks. Every legend who passed away, I don't want to name because I'm going to forget some names for sure, and I forgot names by mentioning the ones that I mentioned, but rest in peace for all the legends that passed away and that left our world. Hopefully in 2021 we're going to be having a more exciting year with fans back. The Euros are going to be coming. There will be some serious international fixture congestion in 2021. If 2020 was the year of league congestion, I think that the international fixtures are going to be so congested in 2021. So in the end of this episode, like, comment, share it, subscribe to the channel, of course, enable notifications to receive all the updates you can have. Follow us on social media at PSP, Pitchside Pod on Instagram and Twitter respectively. Listen to the podcast on Spotify, Google Podcast or any other platform, or you can catch it later on at www.webreathesports.com. In the end, Merry Christmas for everyone who celebrates Christmas. Happy New Year from now, and hopefully 2021 will be better. And until the next episode, of course, I was your boy, the HFD of the PSP. Of course, you can check out the preview of the Boxing Day if you wanted to talk some proper football, and goodbye.